Hi everyone, well I'm back again. I hope everybody's had a good Christmas and a good New Year. I know it's a bit hard to do that with the circumstances that we're under at the moment, but I'm back with a new video to show you how to do this time a Phaleanopsis orchid. And before I start on making the orchid, this is actually a fresh orchid that I have in flower at the moment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that one as near as I can. Now I've already made some. This is one of the orchids that I've done. These are a bit bigger than the actual orchid I've got there. These are more the size of the ones that I have in other colours at the moment. That one's a smaller one than the others. And what I've got here in front of me is a variety of different cutters that you can get for making Phaleanopsis orchids. I'll take that one away because I've already got a set of that here. Now these here, these two sets here, when I make these orchids up, I do cut these into separate petals. I prefer to do them that way rather than doing them all in one, for the simple reason that they're difficult to handle. You need a former to put them in if you're going to do it all in one, but I like to be able to move my petals around and get them just as I want them, so for that reason I'm not using those. I'll just put those out of the way. But I did find this one just before Christmas online, which I quite like actually. So because I usually cut the other petals into one, that's what this cutter is going to do. Is going to cut the other three petals with your two side petals and your middle throat there. So what I'm going to do to start off with is start off by making the anther cap. I should have one made up somewhere. Yes, I have. There we are. So that's that one. So I'll just pop that there. That's the one that I've already dried. I've got all my bits and pieces. I've done my blue Peter bit, and get some paste out. Now most of the time when I'm doing orchids, I do tend to do them in white first and then colour them afterwards, for the simple reason that it depends on what sort of colour you're doing as to how you're going to colour them. So because there's a variation in colour on the petals, like on the back of these here, you've got this green bit on the back. I tend to prefer to do them in white and then dust them to the colour that I want. If I was doing a darker one, a deep burgundy or something like that, then I probably would start off with colour in the paste. But most orchids tend to have a different coloured centre to the petals, the side petals, the lateral petals and the sepals as they're called. You learn a lot about botany doing this. I certainly did. Although I'm into gardening, I know a lot more about plants now than I ever did before, or thought that I knew. Right, so you need some 26 gauge wires for this. Now for your petals and your centre, I'm using a 26 gauge wire, a white one. And for the buds I've used a green one, but we'll get onto that shortly. Get my scissors. So I'm going to cut this into 4. We're going to need more than that. I'm going to need another wire. I should have got 2 out in the first place, shouldn't I? As I keep saying to people, if you haven't watched my videos before, if I make a mistake or do something wrong, I don't cover it up. I don't go back and film it again or try and alter it so you don't see the mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes, and I think it's better for people to know that people that have been doing it a long time like myself, things still go wrong. So for that reason I never cover up anything like that, because you need to see us making mistakes the same as you would make mistakes, and then you don't think, well, why does that happen to me? It happens to everybody. Right, depending on which flour paste you're using, with some of them they're not as sticky. This is quite sticky that I use, so I don't need to put any glue on my wire, but for the simple reason that I'm showing you this, I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the end of this wire, because some pastes, if you're using things like Renshaw's flour modelling paste or their flour paste, it's not as sticky, and I find that it does tend to, things come off the wires. I have mentioned it before in other videos, but just in case you haven't watched those, you can go watching those again. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, then you can go in and look at all the others. I mean, you can anyway, but I always forget to tell people to subscribe, because I used to think that you had to pay for it or something, you know, but you don't. Subscribing means that when I put a new video up, then you'll be notified about it. So I'm just going to, I've thinned down the bottom part there, and I'm just going to push a small ball tool into the top there to make the cap. Now most of the orchids all have this on them, varying in sizes depending on the type of orchid. It needs to be very small for this, so if you look at that one again, you can see how small it is. This is the one that's dried. I don't do anything else with this because they're so small you can't do anything else. On the larger ones you can put more detail into it. Right, so now we get on to the petals. I'm going to start off with the centre first, because that takes a little bit more moving around with. So I've got some fat on there, I don't need to put any more on. Once your board's covered in fat, you don't need to cover it every time you roll something out. Just do it when you need it, if your paste isn't sticking, because in order to get it quite thin you need your paste to stick to your board. Not like glue, but you need to be able to move it. But once you get it on your board, don't keep picking it up and moving it round and turning round like you would a piece of sugar paste or a piece of pastry. It doesn't work like that. You need it to stay on your board until you've got to the point where you've cut all your pieces out. I'm not going to go too thin with this, for the simple reason that they are quite a fleshy plant, our orchids. I'm using my trusty little rolling pin. I'm not quite sure who these are made by, but I've always used these, because when you've got a lot to do, you can find you can cut a lot more pieces out in a short period of time. So we'll cut out one centre piece. Now the advantage with this, with having these two pieces on here, means you don't have to cut down the centre of that one there, which is what you would have to do with that one. So it saves a little bit of time. Then I want 3 of these side petals. And another one down there. And then 2 of this wide one. There we are. So that's all my bits and pieces cut out for one orchid. Try and get metal cutters if you can, because you get some plastic ones are alright, but they don't tend to stay sharp as long like the metal ones. You just have to be careful, because they are welded together in one piece, so there will be a weak point on them. These are not so bad because they've been turned over at the top, so that sort of strengthens them, but it has got a weak point there on the side, and most of them usually down at the bottom. That's overlapped, and that's not so bad either. Right, so we'll get rid of that paste there, put that back in my bag. And I need my pad here. Just pop those on there for now. You'll find with some of my videos, because my camera only records for a certain period of time, that it will come to an end. Sometimes I have to do more than one video. So if it finishes, there will be another video with the rest of it on. So don't panic. Right, now get the wire down the centre of that into there like that. And do the same with all of the petals. So just bear in mind when you're doing this that you need to, if you get it between your finger and your first finger and your thumb, and then you just feel the wire go down, just take your time, but you need the wire to go down as far as you can down your paste, and it doesn't want to come out on either side. If it does, just pull it back and go back in again. The reason for that is if you break anything, it's a lot easier to repair it. I know I keep repeating myself, but again, for people that haven't watched my videos before, I do always cover this in all my videos so that people that haven't seen the other videos are aware of why we get the wire to go as far down as we can. If you do break it, you can mend it by mixing some of your flour paste together with some of your edible glue, and use that to stick them together. So you need odd bits of the same colour. If you haven't got the same colour, it's going to be difficult to repair. You can't just put some glue on it and stick them together, because it doesn't work. But because you mix the flour paste and the glue together, it does give you a stronger joint where you've put that in. I haven't put any glue on any of my wires because this paste is okay. They don't tend to come off this. So get my other ball tool out and go around the edges. I usually do it with the ridge side upwards, which is the back of your petal, so that particularly when you're doing thicker paste like I'm doing with this, thicker than I would normally do if I was doing a rose or anything like that, your ridges don't show, because that's going to be on the back. Just need to get a thin edge. The fact that your paste is thicker in the centre doesn't matter, so I've been told when you enter competitions. They're more interested in what the whole thing looks like. So I'm just going to go around the edge of each of these parts here. And then I'm going to turn it over, and this part on the side I'm going to ball tool in the centre like that to cup it. And then with the points I'm just going to pull down like that so that they curl back a little bit there. That's gone a little bit offside. If it does that, just go on up the side with your ball tool. And then what I'll do with that is I've got some foam here with all my bits and pieces on. This is where this bobble foam comes in. Then just bob your centre into there like that, so that your side pieces come up. We don't do any veining on that. There is another piece to put on that, but I'll come back to that in a second. And these we're going to vein. So I'm going to use the same veiner for all these. I have got other parts of this set, but I don't know what I've done with it. So to make it simpler, I'm just going to use the same veiner to vein everything. So just pop it in the centre like that. If you haven't got a veiner, don't worry about it, because for the simple reason that the veining on orchids, it's not very prominent, so if you haven't got veiners, don't worry. On some of the flowers I use the silk veining tool, but not on orchids because it's a bit too heavy veining for those. Just pop those all onto my foam. I'm not bringing it over every time because it just takes me longer to do it, and it means you're going to get bored sat there watching me do this video. And same with the side petals, which is this veiner is actually made for these petals. You can see the veining when you dust them, but like I say, it's not, unless you're going in for a competition where you'd have to have all the correct equipment, it doesn't really matter. You can get away with it. So what I've done is I've put them all onto my foam there, all these on this end here. I've already got some dry ones here at this end. I should have got my plain piece out, shouldn't I? Just get that plain piece out, then you can see what I've done. These are the ones that I've just done. I'm not pushing them down. I don't want a lot of shape because orchids are quite flat, and if you do them flat sometimes they just look dead. So I'm just going to get that out of the way for the time being, and then I'm going to come back to this one. Now there's another little piece that needs to go into this one, and this is where the pollen would be in an orchid, where the bees are going to go, or other insects, to pollinate other flowers. So I need a tiny little piece of ball of paste like that. Tiny, tiny. Smaller than a pea, more like a pea seed or something like that. I'm just going to roll that into a slight oblong, and then I'm going to put a bit of glue just down the centre there, in between these two side petals. Pop that on there, like that. And then you want something with a straight edge on it. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to use a little palette knife here and just go into the centre of it like that, and open it out like that. Then put that back onto your foam to dry. There we are. So that's all the pieces made for that. I have got all the dried pieces made here. Okay. So the next step is colouring. So I'm just going to get rid of that bit of paste. Now I'm going to use a variety of colours here. For the markings in the centre I've got a burgundy here, which is this colour here. I'm going to use that for painting, which is burgundy from Edible Art. Edible Art. I'm using the pink one that I've used is, I haven't used this one before in my videos. It's one called Raspberry Shimmer, and it's a lovely colour. And it's just ideal for, I was trying to find a colour that would be ideal for that particular orchid, and so I'm going to use that one for the pink orchids. And then I'm using some tropical lime for the green part, and some yellow which goes in on the centre part where the bees get the pollen. I've already got a piece of kitchen paper here that I've used for doing the ones that I've already made. So, brush for pink, brush for green, and there should be a brush here for my yellow there. That's my brush for the yellow, and then my painting brush. I'm using a very fine brush, which this one is a 000. If you've got a 4/0 one, which I haven't got out at the moment, you could use that for doing the markings. So, first thing we need to do is to start colouring all your bits and pieces. Now just be careful with this one. When you're dusting this, you need to be very gentle with it, because otherwise you can break bits off. That one that I showed you I'd broken a little bit off of the end. It's the only one that I've broken, but it does happen. If anybody makes a comment about it, just say, well, you do it. That's always my answer. So I'm just going to start by dusting all over this with that. With the side piece, if you just tilt it on one side like that, and then just like that, and then the other way, just give it some support, then it's be less likely to break it. Then turn it over and do the same on the back. The difficulty with the back is I can't rest it on anything, because not until we get to that part, and then what I do is I just place that side wing on your finger and just very gently. You see, this is coming out a bit paler because I'm dusting it onto white and not onto pink. It's not quite as strong as it is in the pot. This has got a nice shimmer with it, so although they're not shimmery ant orchids, sometimes when I'm doing things like this, particularly roses and that, if you're doing a plain one and not one with a colour on the edge or anything, they look nicer done with a shimmer. I know it's not realistic, but there we are. Right, before I finish that one, the next part that I'm going to do on that is I'm going to dust some green on it. Now if I get the one out that I've already dusted, and what I've done is I've dusted down the centre part of the orchid there with some green. I've gone over the side of it, either side of that central ridge, and then with your yellow brush, I've already got some on there, just go over that centre piece with the yellow for the pollen. And then onto the burgundy, and I have a brush somewhere for paint. Where is it? There it is. And when I'm just painting, I use one of these like a hypodermic. I got these off eBay. These are quite big ones, so if I've got a lot to do, I can get quite a lot in. You can control the amount of colour isopropyl that you get into your, or whatever it is you're using for your painting. We use the isopropyl because you can use ordinary alcohol, but if you can't for religious reasons use alcohol as such, you can use this because this is fine. It's not the same. So what I need to do now is, just on these side bits, is just get some little dashes on there, like that. That's that done. And we can just pop that to one side. That's done. So we can do away with that one. Then on to the petals. Now all the petals, just basically all I'm going to do with these now is I'm going to dust them all over with the pink. One. While I'm doing this, if anybody's got any comments about anything they'd like to see, or any questions about anything that I do, please post in the comments below the video, and I will try and answer any questions that you can. There's a lot of things I can't remember, but if you ask me any questions about sugarcraft, I usually have the answer. My brain's brimming with information, so if there is anything that you would like to ask, then please do. When I'm in class, I get questions fired at me all the time, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have the same privilege. And that's one of the advantages with modern technology now. Although you're watching a video, you can ask questions at any point in time after the video has been uploaded. Anything you're not sure about, or any products that I've used, or where to get them, or anything like that. I mean, a lot of things you can get through your local sugarcraft shops, Please support the shops, because at the moment, the way things are, they desperately need your business, so please support them. Right, nearly finished, just the back of this one to do. It's alright buying things online and that, but if you go into a shop like a friend of mine's got a shop in Shipley, Tracy at Cakes to Please, she can answer questions like I can, so if you're doing something and you're not sure about what to use for it, she'll tell you. Right, so then we're going on to the green now. Turn it over onto the back, and all I'm going to do is, I'm just trying to think, how much did I use on the back? Let's have a look. Yeah. Widthways, just down the back, like that, on each of the wide petals. You don't need to keep putting dust on your brush for this. You've usually got enough on to do most of them. And then sideways, so you're going to do a narrow piece down the back on the narrower petals. Like that. Then we're ready for, oh, I've forgotten the centre part, haven't I? The centre part. So with this, I'm going back to the pink. Where's my pink brush gone? There. I'm not going to do it all the way up. I'm leaving a little bit of white at the top on this. So just dust from the bottom upwards. Like that. So there's a little bit of white left on the top. Don't ask me why it's white on top. That's nature. It does its own thing. But I've been on my orchids with a magnifying glass, so that's why I know that that is right. As anybody would tell you if you're entering competitions, if you look at the real flower and have that in front of you while you're doing anything like this, basically, as I was taught by my teacher Maureen years ago, you take the look to see how you can take a flower apart and put it back together again, because that's basically what we're doing. Right, so once you've done that, then you can start assembling. Now you could use light green tape for this. I've used dark green tape, and I've put it the wrong way around, because one side of your tape is stickier than the other, but you need the this is Stemtex, which is a manufactured make, but what you need is a florist tape that is stretchy like this. It's a bit like crepe paper with glue impregnated in it, and that's why we use that one, because it sticks to itself and it's a lot easier to use. The other types that florists use are much thicker and they're no good for this job. So now what you need to do now with all your bits and pieces now is get your finger right at the end like that and bend your wire down so that it's at a right angle like that. So if you do that on all of your petals, ready to put it all together. Usually I time myself on this and then go off and then come back on again to do the next video, but I'm finding that you don't need to do that because the camera does it automatically, comes on and starts up again. You might miss a couple of words, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. Oh, I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm a comedian. Right, so now you want the open side of your this part here facing inwards, and then what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to tape down. Now if it moves around, don't worry about that, because you can come back and adjust it once you've taped down. And the reason I do this is because then it's not going to move around once you start putting all your other bits and pieces in. Right, so that part's done. Now the next thing that you need to do, if you look at the orchid there, you've got two petals that come back this way behind here.